Hello and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions or comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. For introductions, I'm going to mix it up a little bit tonight, so pay attention, guys. For the Inactive Mason topic, your name, your lodge number, and when was the last time you went to lodge? See if you can remember when that was. Some of you it was so short ago, some of you so long ago. Now for me, my name is John Ruart, past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957, and I went to my Royal Arch chapter last night. And I'll hand it off to Nick Johnson.
Hi, Nick Johnson, past master Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time Farmington. I was at chapter last night, serving in the Mark Master degree, and I was also at my lodge meeting a month ago. I've been
Excellent.
very naughty, but I showed up.
Good. The show is for you. All right. Handing it off to Juan Sepulveda.
Hello, everybody. Juan Sepulveda from Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida, who had the pleasure of having me among their midst about 2 weeks ago. I know it was the second Monday in September. I went, and then this Saturday I was part of a Masonic. I was observing the craft. There was a workshop on Saturday. It was an all morning Saturday with worshipful brother Andrew Hammer. It was very good. Back to you.
Very cool. And last but not least, Jason Richards.
Oh, who, me? Hey, everybody, Jason Richards from Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia. And I didn't sit in a tiled lodge on Monday, but I tell you what, I spent 14 hours at lodge Monday cooking dogs and corn dogs.
That'll be okay. Good. Corn dogs. Thanks
Yes,
for clarifying.
corn dogs and curly dogs for the Clifton Day Festival, and even gave a couple tours of the lodge to people in the community who are interested in joining. So I'm going to call that on par with going to Grand Session.
Yeah, you were there. You were serving your lodge well. Good. Excellent. Let's move right into the Masonic news tonight, and the first one that we have is the Masonic Service Association. This came out on Friday, October 9th. They have established a disaster relief fund for South Carolina following a week-long drenching of rain causing rivers to overflow, dams to burst, roadways to flood, etc. So this is an opportunity for brothers to help out brothers, especially those whose lodge may be damaged, whose brothers may need assistance. So you can go to the Masonic Services Association website to find out how to donate. Simple PayPal donation, very easy to do, right from your phone. So no reason why you can't give a couple bucks to help out a brother. So that is one good thing, one good service that the Masonic Service Association does.
So shut up and take our money.
Please do. Nick, did you have anything else you were going to add? Masonic news, you found some crazy things. You want to talk about the thing in Florida? Huh?
Sure. Which thing in Florida?
The Disney World?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. So, on Reddit today, or yesterday, or whenever I read it, I don't remember. Apparently, there was yeah, exactly. The H of Biff box of working tools that could be found at, where was it, Juan?
Jungle Cruise, Walt Disney World.
At Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World. Had been there for a long time. People would take pictures of it all the time. I think even I saw it when I was down there. It's vanished. We don't know where it's gone.
This is where it used to be. So on one of those boxes, I believe the one that is being covered up by the bag of unknown material, this
Uh-huh.
wooden box did have written in stencil on the outside HA's working tools. So we will see if what was lost can now be found again.
I assume that Club 33 over in Disneyland decided that they needed to go to war and steal those working tools and bring them back to Los Angeles.
Ah,
That's
the
only my
East
assumption.
Coast West Coast Masonic rivalry, huh? Look
I,
at
I
that.
would suspect so, yes.
It makes perfect sense. It's one of the better conspiracy theories compared to the other logic I've heard. Nick's doing the Illuminati confirmed.
Illuminati confirmed.
Alrighty. Well, Nick, while you're there, why don't you move us right into our MMQOT?
John, before you move forward, if you don't mind,
what have you got?
I found a picture of where you can see
Ah, there's the old version.
it is H. Abiff's working tools. There's no joke. And on the side, you can see a trowel, you can see a level and a plumb.
That's
see that?
amazing. Yeah.
Telling you.
No.
It's over in Club 33, that secret club that sits right on top of Pirates of the Caribbean.
What?
What?
It's true. Look it up. I'm not even kidding. Club 33, Anaheim, California, Disneyland, USA, planet Earth.
I can neither confirm nor deny such a club exists. Nick, move us on to MMQOT, a Masonic Monday question.
On Tuesday.
Thank you, John. All right, so we had some really, really dogged answers who were very good at what they did. So I'll just read off their names. Steve Higdon, Justin Miller, Greg Guffey, Christopher Crocho, Jonathan Primo, James Webb, Lou Bedford, Joey Boyer, Michael Overturf, Al Leathers, Christopher Fetko, and we had one late arrival that just literally showed up like 5 seconds ago from Jonathan Doucette. There we go. I said his name right. Jonathan Doucette. And I'm supposed to correct how I've been saying. Let me see if I can find his name. Anyway, I've been saying someone's name incorrectly because I'm bad at this. But
Wah.
I know, but I feel bad because people get my name wrong all the time. So.
Man, I really want to know who it is now.
Yeah, Nick is a difficult name to say.
It is with Johnson too. Greg Bodine. So, Greg, sorry I've been saying your name wrong. Next time you answer correctly, you're actually going to get some real credit. So, with that, the answer
Bodine's better.
I know. Everybody feels better now. So, all right. So the answer to that one was the Arch of Titus, found in the Roman Forum, which was constructed to honor the military victory over the Jews in 70 A.D. The structure featured reliefs of looted treasures from the Second Temple that were carried in procession to Rome. In particular, the symbol of the menorah being carved in deep relief in the structure. So congratulations, everyone, for getting that all correct. And now to the very, very interesting question. Now, as some of you may know, especially those who are federal employees, yesterday was Columbus Day, which is a very interesting holiday that we still have on our calendars.
He was a jerk. Read the Oatmeal cartoon.
Yeah, well, lots of people are jerks, so doesn't mean it's not a day off.
Give me a day off.
Hey, right. You bank's your holiday.
Yeah, exactly. So, ready for this? Masonic Monday question for the week of October 12th, 2015. Columbus Day is a day that was intended to honor the immigrant experience. As most Americans of the late 19th and early 20th centuries had a direct link to some other country, the holiday was viewed as a way to acknowledge and honor an integral part of the American experience. This was even more recognizable to the flourishing Italian immigrant community. In 1922, this New York lodge dedicated a special monument a work of art created by a past Grand Master of the Grand Orient of Italy on the New York Masonic home campus, with the Grand Master of New York presiding over the ceremony. Your question: what is the name of this Masonic lodge? What kind of monument were they involved in erecting on the New York Masonic home campus? When you have an answer, send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name, your lodge number, and the hashtag Columbus good or bad? Question mark. Back to you, John.
Excellent. I love your hashtags. Okay, barring anything else on the agenda, let's move right into this week's topic, which is the Inactive Mason. Now, this was a topic that we wanted to talk about for some time, where obviously we try to be somewhat active in attending at least once a month to our respective lodges, but there are brethren who get initiated, passed, and raised, and then, for whatever reason, don't come back, or don't come back as often as they should. So we're going to talk about the Inactive Mason, what causes it, what can we do to fix it, and what are some of the impacts of inactivity. So let's get right into really the definition. What would you say? Now I'm actually gonna throw a curveball at you guys, because I thought about this, and if you know, what do you think the percentage of your total lodge membership includes your inactive versus your active members? So I'll kind of start for let's just say Herndon Lodge, my mother lodge. They have, the last time I heard, about 250 members on the books, and only about 40 or so are truly active. And so, as in, you will see them, you know their names, you've seen them at all of the, the regular events. What would you say it is like over in your case, Juan?
I don't think it's a good idea that you ask me first. I have actual numbers from a study that I did about a month ago. So
from your old lodge or your new lodge?
I have 44 lodges I got responses for.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. That was one of your surveys that you did on the Winding Stairs Freemasonry group.
Yes, sir. And I have it in a spreadsheet. I can share that with you, boys. You brothers.
Okay. Well, while you get that set up, if you want, we can go around and come back to you. Or are you saving that for the end?
No. It's not. I just didn't want to spoil, because you guys are going to be guessing. I have the answers.
Oh, you have actuals. Alrighty. Then Nick.
Sure.
What would you say the active versus inactive ratio is in your lodge?
Let's see. I would say between 15 and 20%. It depends on what kind of food is being served, I think, sometimes, and what we're doing for our activities. Certain speakers will get closer to the 20% of our lodge membership, and other stuff usually around 15. So.
Mm-hmm. And Jason, what do you think?
11 to 14%.
That sounds about right.
We have close to 150 members on the books, 145, and on any given week we get 14 to 20 showing up to the stated meetings.
Yeah, and that's roughly the same percentage-wise. Had about 16% when you do the 40 into 250 for Herndon Lodge. Patriot Lodge is a little bit higher. However, it is because it has a lot of active Masons anyway, because it's mostly containing members of other lodges, because it's so brand new.
On the nose.
On the nose. That's one way to get inactivity stamped out. Just get a whole bunch of active Masons to join your lodge.
No, but you hit it right on the nose. 16% is the average.
No way.
Yep, based on the 44 responses that I have.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to share. There were a couple of surprises that forced me to go back and ask, okay, what's going on? You need to tell me a little bit more about what's happening. But just to give you an overview, out of the 44 responses, let me freeze the pane. Sorry, I didn't do that before. Okay, here we go. Out of the 44 answers, I have an average of 20 active members. These are brothers that would show up to every meeting. These will be the ones that would be active in additional events that will be organized by the lodges, with an average of dues-paying members of 181. Now, clearly, we had some outliers on every regard. So those two numbers I gave you will give you about a 16% ratio of lodge involvement. Then the lowest of all of those was a lodge that had 28 active members and 5 only active. So that's a 2%. That's the absolute lowest. And they expressed to me that they were basically on their way to return their charter. So that's unfortunate news, of course.
Well, and you know that it kind of makes sense when you look at how many officer positions most lodges have. It's about 12 if you have everybody there, first stated, and then you take a couple of the immediate past masters and maybe a new brother or two, and that's basically your makeup for a lodge meeting these days.
Yep, that's very accurate in my experience, in my personal involvement in local lodges. You see that there are a few lodges that have much more participation than that, and on the high end, the very top that I found was with 1,200 dues-paying members. It had 110. This doesn't look right. I'll have to do the math about this, but with 1,200, no, actually with 120. With 120, 110 were active, and that was an extreme outlier.
Wow, that's great.
But you can probably guess it's a
I
very
want to drink
new,
that Kool-Aid.
right? It's a very new lodge, and they had very strict, which was very informative. They have very strict. They guarded the West Gate very strongly, so only brothers that were going to be active were part of it. Now, the second highest, or the normal highest, is a 43%, with 400 dues-paying members and about 50 of them participating. For some reason, this is not. My numbers are not. My percentage here is just not right for some reason.
Yeah,
But
I was
anyway,
going to say it's closer to 25.
yeah.
That's all right. That's great data to have. While you're looking through some of that, the next question I had for all of you guys is, what do you think causes inactivity? Why is that ratio so low from where we'd like to see it? And I'll just go round robin. Jason, what do you think causes at least one factor? You give me one factor and we'll go around. What causes one factor of inactivity?
I can't give too much away because I've got an article coming out on the Midnight Freemasons tomorrow morning.
Lame.
And so I will. I know, it's super lame. But so you all can check it out. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to say burnout is a big reason for inactivity, because of the sheer number of organizations that you have attached to the Masonic family of organizations and the declining membership. The fact of the matter is, John and I have experienced this in our district. You could go to 10 things a day and still not get to everything that our district is doing. And frankly, when you have so many Masons stretched so thin, eventually they're just going to say, enough, I'm done, and get their space. And they might not ever come back.
Yep. Unfortunately, that is true. I've seen that myself. Juan, what do you think a contributing factor to inactivity is?
I firmly believe that one of the most influential factors is that before you are given admittance into the lodge, you have an idea of what you are going to see behind closed doors. Then, when you earn that privilege and you walk in with the expectations expecting those things to be fulfilled, most of the times they're not. And only those who are able to try to fulfill those needs by themselves are the ones that are going to continue to remain active. And, let's say the biggest culprit is Masonic education. It should be a priority within the lodge meeting. There should be a dominating portion dedicated to Masonic education. When you shouldn't be reading the digest.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. It's like I have this whole list of things that are wrong because past masters always do that, right? And actually, one of the points is actually what you just said, which is higher expectations when you're coming in that are unmet. And I call this the Imagines Voltaire meets Fred Flintstone problem, which is you come in thinking you're going to see this amazing ritual, brilliant men around you, but then when you finally sit down in the chair, and this is no insult to brothers, which is really me probably insulting them, but you sit down, and all of a sudden, really the only things they're worried about are how much were the light bulbs, why was the food so expensive at $5 a plate, and harump, I can't believe I'm here. And that's the problem, is that the expectations that we have coming in, and this comes from me too. Luckily, we righted the ship down in Corinthian after some what would you call it? Tense negotiations to fix things. And that's the problem, is that you come in and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna have all this ritual is gonna give me a theurgistic experience. It's gonna change me. But then you get through it and you're like, don't these guys understand what they just did? They're so obsessed with ritual sounding being correct rather than understanding what it means. And yeah.
So what you're saying is past masters breed inactivity.
Yes.
Nick,
agree. Wait.
How long did that turnaround take?
I'd say probably the two before me really started turning the ship, and so probably 4 to 5 years. Now we're going strong. I mean, we're getting candidates that not just come but stay, and they're interested in what's happening. So, but it took a while. I mean, it's one of those that we were having no education. It was just pretty much show up for cold sandwiches, do the business, and go home. And we fixed it, and it's done wonders for everything that we do.
Good.
One quick question. Because I'm super curious about that component of being able to change.
Well, that's what I was going to address later on.
Oh, okay.
If we can kind of identify the root causes, right, then we can kind of go into, well, so what? What do we do with that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so hold that thought.
Yes.
Have a method in my madness.
Juan got smacked down by John.
Burn! Get in your place.
It's okay.
But, because I went off of wands, I think I'll take something off of my chart now, because that's what I'm going to do. Because I'm a past master, and that's how it works. Son. But, the other thing I think about in lodges is that we overemphasize our officers' chairs in a big way. Because, there's only 12 officers, right? So, essentially, you only get the 12 guys to actually show up, right? And then you have a few smatterings, just like we were saying, a smattering of other people that kind of just wander in, right?
It's actually 13 if you have a purse event.
What the heck is a purse was whatever that is? Did they have a sword?
It's an extra guy with a sword.
Sweet. I'm gonna add him down in Farmington, big time. Uh, but the thing is because when we overemphasize the chairs, right? We underestimate or we underemphasize or whatever the word is. We take away from all the actions and work that are happening out by everybody else because we're putting a label on this guy does this guy does this, and when we overemphasize the officers' chairs, we're undervaluing everything else that's going on by all the other work. And it does. I've seen it. You can have these lodges. I know these lodges that have 400 or 500 guys. They're still pulling in 20, because it's just pretty much the guys in the chairs, then a smattering of people, because everybody feels the only work that's going to be done are those that are sitting in special chairs wearing the special jewels. And that breeds a lot of very mediocre work because you're missing out on all these fantastic ideas happening from the sidelines.
Yeah, back to expectation management. This is a volunteer organization, right? And we've alluded to that in previous episodes that you can be active even if you don't have a fancy collar to wear, right? So the other thing I wanted to add, some other contributing factors. This is purely anecdotal, so my logical fallacy is anecdotal.
Everything.
Yes. Select all. Life. I think life gets in the way. I can say that, especially for me, that sometimes I have family commitments, and so that definitely prevents me from being as active as I'd like to be. Boring meetings. We alluded to that. Juan did a different spin on it. He said the lack of education, but just flat old boring meetings. In fact, I have a very sad anecdote to share where one of the brethren that I signed for his very first Master Mason meeting after being raised, they had no education, had a vehement argument about the bills, and we never saw him again. And he's gone. And I felt horrible because it's kind of one of those, like, it gets better, I swear, I promise. And that was it. He said he did not.
Wait a second, is that him wearing a fez? Oh, God.
Another another factor could be not a sense of belonging. I know that I've seen brethren that show up, but Juan's mentioned it in his Winding Stairs podcast, and we've alluded to it a little bit in previous episodes. But you show up, especially if you're traveling or if you haven't been to the lodge in a while, you're not part of any clique, and so you don't know who to talk to, and if they don't come talk to you, why show up? What are you getting out of the experience? So, those are some
people,
other
that's
ideas I
very
thought
tense.
of.
And for some people, that is so uncomfortable. Like, I don't care. I talk. You put me in a room with anybody, and I'll find someone. I'll end up speaking with someone. But not everybody feels comfortable in that scenario. So brothers need to be mindful of that. If someone comes visit your lodge, make sure you come talk to them. And doesn't mean you're gonna babysit them through the whole meeting and through the whole visit. You come, speak with them a little bit, introduce them to other brothers, move on, but give them an opportunity to meet other brothers.
Any other contributing factors before we get into possible solutions, since Juan was so quick to jump the gun?
Well, I think another thing that goes hand in hand with what Juan was saying is just poor mentorship from the outset.
Excellent point.
If you don't get the support that you need, especially as you're going through the degrees, when it's really just you and your mentor, if you're in a jurisdiction that does business on the third degree, idiots. There's really no exposure to the lodge outside of that one mentor, and if that mentor drops the ball, that guy's never coming back again. That's just the way it is.
Absolutely. Let us now get into what Juan's just chomping at the bit to get to. Solutions, right? We've talked about a couple of these potential root causes. How do we fix it? How do we get that ratio up? Juan, What do you think?
I don't know.
All right, that's our show. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Well, I think that one of the important things to keep in mind is that it has to be a multi-faceted attack. If you have this problem in your lodge, don't be fooled by thinking, well, if we lower dues, we fix it, or if we just incorporate Masonic education, we're good to go. It's a chain reaction of things. One affects the other. One that's very insidious is that one, the lack of the meeting of expectations. The experience of the brother, once he is given the chance to sit with you in lodge, it has to justify his decision of not doing something else. As simple as that. And they could be spending time with friends, they could be spending time with family, doing anything else. If they don't derive any value from the time that they're spending in lodge, they're not going to go. They're going to choose to do something else. So I have many ideas of how to fix that, but it takes a long time, and it's not something that you can just correct in a couple of months. This is something that has to be a concerted effort between the line of officers and do everything possible for that transition from chair to chair to be harmonious, and everybody is on the same page, pushing for that same agenda 5 years, 10 years down the line.
And there's no silver bullet either. You can't just work on one thing. It's got to be the entire experience. You get back to what Rob Hurd said on last week's show when we talked about the initiatic experience. This is an entire experience that we're giving our brothers, and it's got to be the whole package for people to stay engaged.
Nick, how did you turn Corinthian around?
Well, a few things that we did was, one, we stopped reading the minutes, and that, yeah, imagine all of a sudden going from having 10 minutes of listening to a recap, a very exciting recap of everything you did last meeting, going away.
You know what, Nick? I'm gonna have to cut you off right there. And this is gonna hit very close to home for Jason and me. In Virginia, you must. It is mandatory that you read the minutes aloud of the meeting you are currently in.
What?
It's not even of last month's minutes. It is. We talked about this. Yes, I know. We just did that 20 minutes ago. You must read in full the minutes before you can close lunch.
Do you guys freely leave the room? Is that so that they could catch everybody up that had used the bathroom, or what?
Oh, it is extremely painful. In fact, they tried to bring a resolution up a couple of years ago. I think it was actually during my year in the East, and I voted for the resolution, which said it is entirely optional. The Worshipful Master may distribute it in other means, but the reading of the minutes is optional. That motion did not pass. There are people that really like their minutes.
Why?
I have no idea.
Seriously, what's in the water? Is there arsenic or something? I mean,
so it's 2 sets of minutes every meeting?
Negative. It's just the current one that you're in.
why?
You have to have your minutes approved of the meeting you're currently in before you can close lodge.
So, do you also have a root canal chair that somebody in the back can give like root canals, and you have a choice between one or the other?
There's no choice. It's always the worst case, and the worst case being reading of the minutes. Go on, Nick.
Oh my God, that sounds horrible. I mean, it's great. I mean, I would never insult another jurisdiction, but wow. Okay, I hold on while I compose myself after hearing that, because that sounds, well.
And yes,
dreadful.
our numbers have not gone up like Colorado's have.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I was in lodge in Colorado, and I do have to share this. And they read not only the minutes from the last meeting, but the minutes from every single called communication and degree leading up to this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay then.
What?
So, yes.
Okay, sorry to get you
Um,
off track, Nick. Let's aside from the minutes, what else did you do?
Okay.
So real
that'll be
quick, real quick, I have to share one of the memes that made it onto Masonic Meme Monday a couple months ago, and this was kind of the response to trying to bring up, hey, maybe we should email out the minutes.
That man is a genius.
Man.
Yes,
Back to
whoever
you,
did
Nick.
that's amazing.
Well,
What
it's
else
kind
did
of
you
funny. One of the Masonic bodies I'm in, one of the invitational ones. The guy, he's an old dude, nice guy, but he's old school, and so he does not distribute the minutes, right? He literally reads them, but he reads them in a slow, Shakespearean way, right? So he's reading these minutes. We get these new guys in. They've seen some of the coolest degree work you can see in an invitational body. And then we hear him drone on for, I'm not even kidding, 12 minutes and 36 seconds, but I'm definitely not looking at my watch to figure that out. But yeah, it's 12 minutes, 36 seconds of hearing him talk about us paying whatever the hall that we're in, what we were going to pay them. That's it.
Wow.
Well, he's just old school. That's just how it works. This isn't cool. No. But, okay, I'll get off of that. I'll get off of the minute high horse that Minnesota currently resides in.
The
But-
fact of the matter is,
okay,
there's
so we
so
stopped-
much more to Masonry than the minutes. Moving on.
Yes, that's the TLDR of that one. So anyway, we read the minutes, and then what we did is we took education, right? Normally when you're doing education, somehow on the list, right, the list goes minutes, whatever else you're doing, like correspondence, old business, new business, and then education, right? I've seen so many lodges do that, right? And new business always takes way too much time, so education goes poof and disappears, right? What we did is we took education and we put it here, right after the Pledge of Allegiance, the minutes, and then education. That means that this is the first thing that happens. Two things that happen with that. One, the guys are engaged at the beginning of the meeting, right? And two, and even better, all the business, because everybody kind of wants to get out of there after they heard all the education, goes away. We don't need to talk about it because everybody's already tired of listening to everybody else. It's fantastic. So take your education and go like this, and it works. It's perfect. So I'm just telling you, put education first. Just like it makes perfect sense, just put it there. That's the other thing that we did.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. Put
Exactly.
Masonic education first.
First. Exactly. We should make that a meme. And then finally, the last thing that we did was we kind of removed the democratization of business, right? Where everybody thinks they have to have a say on every stupid thing that's ever happened, ever. Right? Let's buy light bulbs. Let's do this. Blah blah blah.
Nick,
Everybody
Nick,
has an opinion on that. Hands up.
So what do your past masters do then?
They don't show. I'm just kidding. No, but actually they're very good. They keep quiet because I'm there sitting next to them like a cat wrangler. And I make them. I tell them, you know what? Just mumble to yourselves, murmur, 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 and then we'll be good. That's just sit in the north corner, right where we are. We're good to go. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just remove the democratization of all your business. Just assign it to committees. Just have the worshipful master say, you're doing this because I said so, right? Or junior warden, you're doing this because I said so, right?
When has that ever worked?
I don't know. It just did. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I know. It's weird. Just have to tell the past masters. See, I think if you get the past master pacifiers, they sell them at Target, I think. And, you just give it to them, and they just... and you're good to go.
Past master fires.
Man. All
So
right, I think I'm done now. I'll
Well,
breathe.
that's great. Nick, I'm glad you actually have some empirical evidence to show that these things work to turn around some of the deficiencies that you guys found. I want to build on what Jason said earlier, too. Our last episode with Robert Hurd, we talked about Colorado Masonry. We talked about how it was growing in percentages compared to every other state in the United States. So I flat out asked him, do you think that it is part of the initiatic experience, and more specifically the traditional observance movement that he is helping promote? And he said, absolutely. So that is a possible solution. If you read the traditional observance book that Cliff Porter wrote as well, he talks about that they have a backlog, a queue of candidates that are lining up, waiting to get their degrees because they want the full experience. Traditional observance, in the shape that it manifests, whether you like it or not, it gets numbers because it respects the educational experience and the initiatic experience. So that's one thing that we could do to help solve that problem.
Well, that's kind of living up more to expectations, wouldn't you agree?
Depending on what those expectations are, but yes, I think we can assume that it is the expectation of what I saw in National Treasure and what I got are two different things. Yep.
And the thing is, we're not inventing something. We have access to all this information. We have access to all these tools that can really help make a good man a better man. But if you have all these other superfluities that we are not divesting our lodges from, we're being hypocrites.
That is nice. I like that.
So
it also works for your lodge in addition to yourself.
Yeah.
And another thing that would help to bring people back and get them active again, talk to them. Actually give them a call and try it out. It works. It's worked for our lodges. Give brethren a call and say, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Hope everything's going well. What can we do for you? Did you know we're going to meet, this Friday? Would love to see you again. Just a simple 3-minute phone call can bring your numbers up. And it goes back to that sense of belonging. It goes back to having a purpose, a reason to show up. Hopefully you have something entertaining for them to get value out of once they're there. If, hey, why don't you come out next Friday and we'll talk about our minutes again? It'll be great.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Crowd pleaser. Yeah. That's what minutes are. They make everyone happy when they're over. Actually, it's kind of interesting that you talk about that. Is that actually at Corinthian, another thing that we do is the secretary actually assigns 10 brothers to call up the membership. They each get, I think it's they each get like 15 names, and those brothers actually contact every single meeting, and we meet twice a month, right? They contact every single brother on their list every 2 weeks or however that is, and say, hey, you thinking about coming out to lodge? Oh, that's okay. How's everything doing? And it works. It works beautifully. We're always in constant contact with everyone. Everyone kind of knows what everything's doing. And it's changed a lot. Communication is so much easier now because you can collate, entries and figure out who's going to be making what calls, and you can pretty much check off who you've called every week. It works. It works fantastically.
And having something enticing to share with people. Just Saturday, I ran into Worshipful Harper from Oviedo Lodge, and he was telling me, oh, you should come over to our lodge because they were going to have, he's talking particularly about the meeting for the York Rite in Oviedo. He said, we're going to have a rabbi come and speak about the building of the temple and the actual traditions that surrounded that era. He's not a Mason, so he hasn't seen our degrees, but he's going to give us his perspective based on his particular studies. I'm like, oh, man, I want to be there.
Yeah, when is that? When can I show up?
Right, I want to see that. And, there's a whole bunch of brothers around that have various expertise in different topics. There are brothers within your lodge that might enjoy public speaking. Task them with speaking for 5 to 10 minutes about a virtue or a tool or something, and make a big hoopla about it. Get a couple of brothers. It's not going to be a regular meeting. This time we're going to have such and such talking about this and that. You don't want to miss it. Come over.
Excellent. So I've got one thing that I want to show before we go over to social media. It's about that time of the night. But I saw this tonight on All Things Masonic, which is a Facebook group where Charles Harper did a screen capture of his lodge page where a comment was left that in his lodge there's too much education and not enough friendship and activities.
Oh, wow.
You guys just love your education. I just want to sit there and have cold Masonic green beans. And so at first, everyone's reaction seems to be visceral in the sense of, well, wouldn't it be nice if there were more education? But conversely, that brother has a point too. That is something that the brother wants to get out of Masonry, and he's not getting it from that lodge.
Yep.
So keep that in mind, and really, when you talk to people, when you call the brethren up, when you see them and say, what do you recommend we improve at our lodge? Make sure you just don't go all one way or the other. Make sure that you keep balance, like one of our previous episodes.
Did the guy check out his local Lions Club? Because perhaps that's what he's looking for.
The Shriners have petitions.
I'm out swinging today. So.
All right, Jason, why don't you take care of all the fun comments we're getting on social media?
Yeah. So about that. So starting off with our good friend Ken Lotman from Texas, says, in his opinion, one of the major causes of inactivity amongst the brethren, besides age, which again is something that can't be avoided until you find the fountain of youth, is that lodge is simply boring. If you have a lodge that on stated meetings you come there to eat and read the minutes and pay the bills, Ken says he wouldn't come either, and he's actually master of his lodge. You have to have a lodge that's active and even has public events out in the community. That's one major thing. So I can't argue with that. The fact of the matter is, if people have too many things to occupy their time to throw something away on a boring night.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like we get bogged down in business in a way that I don't understand why. I mean, it's one of those that literally you can assign a committee to take everything. You can assign a building committee, you can assign a social committee, you can assign all these committees, right? And they can just do written reports and just report to the master and just get it done, right? Delegate, delegate, delegate. And it's like, well, hold on, I gotta have my 5 minutes to tell you what we did in 1978 when I was master for the third time. And it's like, guys, we don't need to live like this. We don't need to anymore. It's a beautiful new world. Join the new world order. I mean, I didn't say that. Illuminati confirmed. So
here's something that I think we should talk about. Brother Tim Beasley from Albuquerque actually gives us his reason for being inactive at this point. He says he loves his lodge completely, but he moved out of the state 6 months ago after being raised. And he's tried lodges in his area, but the ritual is so different and the atmosphere is so different from the lodge in which he was raised that he just felt like he was more alone in lodge than out of it. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's rough because I think that's one of the problems that Masons can face is just moving away from everything they know, and then you go into a new lodge and you don't know anybody, and the ritual is completely different, and you think you're making yourself out to look like an idiot. And if there aren't those people who are warm and welcoming and actively egging you to come back, then I can see how it's easy just to say, well, that didn't work, I'll do something else. So that impresses even more the fact that when you have a visitor in your lodge, go out of your way to make them feel at home. Because you never know what that visitor is going through.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and that could be the only night that brother gets outside of work or outside of the house where he gets to interact with other people. He might be just work to home, home to work, and that's the only night he gets to interact with other people, and it should be something you look forward to. And my weird schedule prevents me from going to lodge as much as I would like to, but whenever I go, the brothers at Orange Blossom make me feel like I was there the last meeting. They really make me feel at home, and I really appreciate that.
So we also had a note from Gerald Brown, who said actually, he struggled with whether or not to demit because he wasn't getting the education that he needed in lodge, and he thankfully did not. And hopefully TMR is one of those avenues that provides him with some of the education he's looking for.
And let me build on that, because as I said before, education is a very passionate subject of mine. And really truly live Gandhi's words and be that change you wish to see in the world. If there's not education in your lodge, nothing's preventing you from picking up a book, putting a paper together, bringing it to the master and saying, I'd like to talk about this at a future meeting. So definitely, don't just wait for someone else to bring to lodge what you think needs to be there. You're now a full member of that lodge, and other than being on a committee or being the worshipful master, you have a big say in what you'd like to see. So definitely get out of your seat and be part of that change. So I encourage anyone that if they see something, and it doesn't have to be education, it could be any other topic. They want more social things, great. Form a meetup and have a Tuesday night. I mean, my mother lodge has a Friday lunch meeting where they just hang out for lunch. If you live nearby or you want to get away from work, every Friday they pick lunch at a restaurant in town. Nobody authorized that. No one had to wait for that. They just organized it, and it's growing, and it's great.
Well, your mother lodge also has an esoteric study club called the Beehive Club.
Yes, it does.
On Mondays, and that's
a great.
I think
point.
that's a fantastic example where a lodge is just going above and beyond to provide opportunities for Masonic education. It's not like the lodge is even thrusting it down the throats of the members by including it in the stated meetings. This is an extra thing that you can go to if you've got the time. And Burke's Nerod and those gentlemen do some really great stuff.
Great point. I totally agree.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, do they need
the short elevator pitch of that is that they have brothers that talk about Masonic education previous to the second stating of the month. Yes, Herndon has 2 stated meetings that month. So the hour before the second stated, they'll have people show up early. They'll talk about either a Masonic topic. They'll have one person that say, I'll do a little presentation, and it's purely education. It's not anything else. It's there to have a discussion and enjoy each other's company. And then there are occasions where those topics have been brought in for future lodge presentations, but that's not the intent. The intent is if you really want to nerd out, this is the place to go, and it's growing because it's another avenue, optionally, like Jason said, for people to scratch that itch.
I like that.
So we've got Brother Helbert Light from Twitter who says his lodge actually has a group on WhatsApp with all their members where they announce the meeting and invite the brothers, and he says it's working wonderfully well. That's a really cool way to just completely go outside the box.
Kudos, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard that there's a Grand Lodge that actually has a rotocall service that they use. I think maybe New York, Connecticut, I can't remember, but I think it was a Northeast state. And the secretary can type in all the names, they record a message, and it rotocalls everybody. Now, of course, it sounds a little telemarketing, but that's kind of a good idea, I guess.
Actually, every time they talk about those like auto dialers, I always think of the Simpsons episode where Homer has the Happy Dude, send $1 to Happy Dude 742 Evergreen Terrace.
Actually, Acacia does that.
I'm so sorry.
That is, you know what? That is one of the ways to reach out to all of the brethren. Um, I I personally don't like it. However, it's effective in getting brothers to show up who haven't been there in a while.
That being
Because
said, if it drives results, I'm all for it.
that's right. You know, it's not as personal as I'd like, but at the same time, I can't go around calling 150 members.
Yep. If you're coming to lodge, press 1.
You're just paying dues. Pay them now. Operators are standing by.
Yes. We'll close tonight with Scott Sherman, who has a really good perspective as usual. He says Masonry is inherently experiential. One experience he had when he came to the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area was finding a place for him and his new bride to live. He had a room in a boarding house near the GW Masonic Memorial. And on the way home from work, he stopped in and visited Andrew Jackson Lodge, told them who he was, and that his task was to figure out where his wife and he could live and start a family. And before he knew it, many of the brothers actually volunteered to drive him around on weekends to look for places in Northern Virginia and Montgomery County to live. It took 6 weekends before they finally found a place. But these brothers drove him and his wife around every single weekend for 6 weekends. And that's just an amazing experience that I think will touch you for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Masonry is all about, and that's why people come to Masonry. If we can just keep finding ways to show amazing acts of kindness to the brethren out there, I think we'll find that our levels of engagement creep up.
On that note, let's start wrapping everything up, and we'll start with Nick for his final thoughts.
Sure. My final thoughts are it does get better. It's if you're stuck in a tough lodge, and you're not feeling so hot about it, and you're just not getting what you want, I'm gonna say something kind of drastic. Move on to the next one. I know some of you country boys, it's gonna be tough. I'm in a country lodge, so you might have to drive a little bit, but there are other avenues that you can explore. You're not totally stuck where you are. It's one of those that I think the reason we get inactive is these guys come in, expectations aren't met, as we've said before, and they just don't feel like they can go anywhere else. The right to travel is never really taught to any Master Mason in a way that it should be. You're just handed a dues card and said, here you go, pay us every year and come in when you want to, right? But sometimes a brother needs to explore other places to really feel at home. And so maybe that's one solution that you can have for inactive on an individual level, is to find a place that makes you feel comfortable. I know it's hard because when you're joining, you have no expectations other than the ones that you've created in your own mind and then those small interactions you've had. But if you need to move on, find a different lodge. There's
Or different appendant body, or right.
Or exactly. Like ones that have those buckets on their heads or whatever, they're fun. But wow, I'm really getting dark here. But on a lodge level, if a lodge really wants to change itself, it really needs to change itself, and that can hurt a lot. You can lose some members. You can get people ticked off at you. But honestly, we're lurching forward past the 1950s style of Masonry. It is dying, and some of it is twisting and turning. But it's almost gone, and we're gonna have to transform into this new education-based, where guys are coming to improve themselves, participate in theurgy, and not just deal in cold beans and cold sandwiches and boring meetings. Trust me, all of us work jobs where I'm sure we have to deal with those during the day. No one wants to do that at night. So with that, I've blogged millennialfreemason.com. You can check out the blog post that I have there about Agape Lodge, which is, interestingly enough, another concept lodge that we're trying to see if this will improve the experience by having the meal at the same time with the lodge. So check those posts out, and if you're interested in a Minnesota Mason who's not currently serving as an elected officer, there is a little link there that you can click and kind of join that and have fun. We're going to do another meetup soon. So thanks, John.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to Jason Richards.
All right. Well, let's see. How to combat inactivity. I was talking with one of our past masters, Brother Bobby New, who's always very insightful, and we were at Clifton Day on Monday, and we had just enough help. Where we all had to work all day, but we were able to get everything done that we needed to do to support the town. And I said, you know what? The fact of the matter is, I helped run this event this year, but I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and beg people to come out. And he said, well, you shouldn't have to. There should be other ways that we can give them a reason to come out. There has to be a way to either spin it or just a way for us to morph what we're doing into something worthwhile for all the brethren to come out. And I think that's going to be a distinct challenge, at least for my lodge, over the next couple of years. But keep trying to find those ways to convince brethren that lodge is worth their time. And that is the best way that you can combat inactivity. My name is Jason Richards. I've got a blog. I haven't written on it in forever. However, the midnightfreemasons.org, I have a new article coming out. It's called Taking Back the 24-Inch Gauge, and it's decent. It'll give people something to chew on. As always, it's a bit controversial. Not as bad as the article John and I wrote for the Midnight Freemasons back in July, but it's a piece, and I'd be very interested in your feedback just to see what you think about it. So send me an email, send me a Facebook note, let me know what you think about it. Oh, and thanks for being awesome and watching our show week after week.
DFTBA.
Keep the topics coming.
Awesome. Juan Sepulveda.
All right. Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
If after the meeting you can't answer this question excited, then the meeting wasn't good. What was the most exciting thing you learned in the meeting? If the most exciting thing you learned had something to do with some bill or some minute, you missed your opportunity. Make sure that every meeting has something. It doesn't have to be an hour long. It should have something that's exciting that is going to contribute to the value of the experience, because there's an opportunity cost. I could be spending my time with my family, and I guarantee you that the time that I spend with my kids sometimes is really awesome. Sometimes it tests me, but most of the time it's very awesome. It doesn't compare to hearing minutes and hearing bills and hearing, people trying to figure out when to do what. Like Nick said, there's a lot of committees that, if handled properly, can make most of the decisions outside of the lodge, and then you come with a very succinct presentation. These are our two options. I am leaning towards this one. What do you brothers think? And be done with it. Be swift in your decisions. Be decisive, assertive, and make sure that you maximize the time that you allow within the meeting for something worthwhile like Masonic education. And Masonic education doesn't have to be only talking about the history of Freemasonry or talking about the working tools. It could be talking about how Freemasonry applies to people's lives. Let's talk about the virtues and put them in terms that the new folks can understand and how to put that into work. thank you very much, brothers, for listening and for watching our show. It really keeps us motivated to get feedback from you, brothers, all the time expressing how listening to us sometimes helps them make decisions that impact their lodges. And I hope this is one of those episodes that it actually helps you not just listen, take it upon yourself. We challenge you. Go make a difference. Don't sit and wait for your worshipful master to make a decision. Handle that like a boss. All right, brothers. I say goodbye. I invite you to go to freemasonryart.com. I have 2 new works of art that I am sharing. The Ladder of Virtue, you can see back there. You can go to freemasonryart.com. And the other one is Grammar. It's the 6th installment in the Liberal Arts and Sciences artwork. So I encourage you to go visit it. And thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Juan. All right, to round things out, I just want to reemphasize, talk to people. If you see people that are interactive, you know who they are. You know what their phone number is. Give them a call. Also, I think it's been alluded to once before by Nick, but some Grand Lodges do exit surveys as they're demitting. And so you take the time to sit down. If someone says, I'm demitting for so-and-so reason, and you can't resolve it previous to that, well, find out. Find out why this brother needs to leave the lodge. And you'll actually have a data point, something that you can tangibly show instead of, hypothetically try to figure out. So talking to people works. It helps you identify what it is that you're not giving for that person. Again, that one person may not be indicative of all people, but at least you have some data to show where you can improve. And that's really what we're all about, right? We're all about self-improvement. So should our lodge. The last thing I want to do is send our best to RJ, Robert Johnson. We forgot to mention his absence tonight, but we hope everything is going well. And again, congratulations on the new edition. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.